What happens often is you and I are talking about these big deals, and I think people are thinking like, well, I'm not able to do a $20 million deal or even a $5 million deal. What about the $750,000 deal, right? The
Yeah.
$500,000 deal. Well, it's coming there too. So I want you to know it's coming
Oh, I
to that
agree.
market as well. So that's where the opportunity lies for people who are trying to get started in this
Mhm.
market, or maybe they've got, maybe they're looking to accelerate now. And if they've been wise and listening to you all this time and kind of marshaling their cash, right? Or maybe they've kind of sold out from that single family stuff and they've got cash they want to deploy, and the time is coming for this stuff. So
You have undoubtedly heard that there's upwards of a trillion. That's with a T, folks. $1 trillion in commercial real estate debt that is coming up for refinance. Many, if not most, of that is going to potentially end up in defaults. That's a lot of stuff. But I think what we need to do is we need to understand how you and I, the small investors, might be able to A, see it coming, and B, quite possibly take advantage of this. And of course, we're going to have this conversation with the one and only Jonathan Twomley. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. And I just want to tell you that you have underestimated the amount of potential defaults out
Oh
there
no.
because that data, I believe it's the data that you've seen from TREP. I've seen the
Mm-hmm.
same data. They are not tracking small properties. They're only tracking
Oh no.
larger loans, like essentially investment grade stuff, right?
You're right. You're
So
right.
there is really very little transparency into exactly how much smaller stuff is out there that's in a similar position where people, the same thing happened where people kind of
Went nutty.
got ahead of their skis, overpaid for for properties, and now they're running into all the same issues that a lot of these big deals are running into. Now they may not have the variable debt problem, however, they will be coming up for refi, right?
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
those uh those loans are typically bank loans, credit union loans. They're only 5 years long. They've got personal recourse on them, right?
Yes.
So
Personal
the
recourse.
so
Yes.
the incentive to sell those things is going to be high, right? Because if
Yeah.
they're not able to refinance them, and some of them, maybe they'll be able to refinance, they'll be fine. But if they're looking at a loan that, was kind of scraping by when the debt was at, 4%, and now the debt is at 8%, then it's going to be awfully tough. The values have taken a beating
Mm-hmm.
because cap rates have gone up, and uh, it's going to be tough to refinance those without a cash in refi. And a lot of these small
A significant
sellers,
cash in
yeah,
refi.
and a lot of these small sellers don't have the cash to put in, right?
Yeah.
So when you want to talk about the opportunity that's out
Yeah.
there for
Mhm.
folks listening to the podcast, I think that what happens often is you and I are talking about these big deals, and I think people are thinking like, well, I'm not able to do a $20 million deal or even a $5 million deal. What about the $750,000 deal, right? The
Yeah.
$500,000 deal. Well, it's coming there too. So I want you to know it's coming
Oh, I
to that
agree.
market as well. So that's where the opportunity lies for people who are trying to get started in this
Mhm.
market, or maybe they've got, maybe they're looking to accelerate now. And if they've been wise and listening to you all this time and kind of marshaling their cash, right? Or maybe they've kind of sold out from that single family stuff and they've got cash they want to deploy, and the time is coming for this stuff. So
Yeah, it is. I don't know if I want to use the word embarrassing or powerful, but I really do think that we're going to get a shot to repeat what we did in 2006. And for those that don't know, in 2006, I basically took 8 overvalued single family homes, sold them, aka 1031 them into 80 units at under market prices. And Jonathan, I think I'm going to do it again. I really do. I think residential real estate as rates come in slowly, is going to have another crash up. Is my fear, like Joseph Wang talks about. I don't know what it means, 5, 8, 10, 12, 15%. Because again, I own stuff that's first time home buyer stuff.
Mm.
So let's assume it's 10% additional equity. It's now really unaffordable, but I'm the only seller. And then, we get the 12 unit, the 16 unit, the 24 unit that either was purchased or, dare I say, refied at the wrong time in
Yeah.
2020. And they're coming up for their 5 years in a year. And yeah, I think you're right. I think I'm going to do it again. I put this out there a year ago that it would be my dream to do it again. I think it's coming. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And
Yes.
I do. I do. I think that there is going to be an opportunity to to buy these assets either in a really sort of desperate sale situation from the seller or in an outright foreclosure, right?
I agree.
And as I've mentioned on the channel before, now if you're interested in this kind of thing, now is really the time to be talking to those REO officers at those banks. And I think what we're going to see too, now this is an opportunity that's going to kind of unwind slowly over the next few years, right? It's not going to
Correct.
be like just right now, right?
Yeah.
I think so if you want to think about the 2020 vintage refinancing, right? The
Exactly.
COVID, when that's next year, guy.
It is.
Those 5
It's
years
next year.
expire next year,
Wow.
right? I mean, it's hard,
Wow.
you can't believe it's already been, you know, 4 years since COVID hit, but I mean, we should go back. What do you recall? I bet you know that, Michael. You know everything about it. What was the date on which the Fed lowered interest rates like dramatically after
Oh,
COVID? Like,
that
when
was
did they
late
start doing
March. That was late
late
March of
March?
2020.
And how far and how fast did they drop them again? I forget. I mean, it was pretty
Well,
dramatic.
there was one reduction of, I think it was 50 basis points, and then
Yeah,
they went right to zero, I think, in April.
yeah,
Right. It was kind of a stair step down, but what people don't realize is the Fed takes stairs up, raising, and the elevator down.
yeah.
So I think it had two stops.
So listen, everybody, like mark the date on your calendar, April 2025, right? Maybe
Exactly.
give it a month.
Well,
May.
let's talk about that, because it's really funny that this is coming. You and I talked. God, when was your event in Vegas? When was that? That was like,
That was last April.
so that was
Also,
April. I
yeah.
told you about a story that I had. I think it was in January. I went to one of my small banks in Fresno, California.
Yep.
It's a yearly exercise. I showed him our economic statement. We did our thing. We were fine. Personal financial statement. We were fine. And then he said, "Hey, you got 5 minutes?" And then remember, he pointed to the
Hmm.
vanilla envelope and
Yep.
said, "I can't refi 50% of those." Those are all small 5
Yep.
to 40 unit things. And again, why I'm bringing this up is it's not necessarily April of 25. The owners of those assets are going to be told this year, sorry, can't refi. So we're going to
Yeah.
start seeing stress probably in the summer of people
So
going, God, I got 6 months to get out. Nobody wants to lend. I'm screwed. I don't got the money.
yeah,
So,
that's a good point. And sort of the reason I was saying mark your calendars for, for April, but really it's more let's move that date up 6 months. Like
mhm.
it's when people start to have to go figure out their refi, right? 6 months later. The
when
point
they're
that I was trying,
shocked, when they're shocked, their banker won't do it. That's the key. Like,
right.
what do you mean you won't do it? I never missed a payment.
Yeah. And I mean, and we were talking last year about the rebalancing thing where the banks are trying to rebalance away from all the multifamily that they lent on,
Yeah.
right? But this is a different problem because so it's not just the rebalancing. What I was getting at was that, look, 2020, when interest rates dropped to zero and all these people rushed out to refinance their debt at super low interest rates, right? Even if the Fed does go and lower rates later this year, which I'm still honestly a little dubious about,
Yeah. I
right? I
mean, you
mean, it
see
may,
the unemployment numbers this morning down to 187.
yeah, I mean, it's like
Crazy.
I'm just not believing this narrative of like interest rates going down. But even if they do go down, right? I was just reading this morning in preparation for the call, again, one of the Fed governors they're saying like, well, they think they're going to get the federal funds rate down to 4.6 from 550 or 525 or whatever it is now.
Mhm.
So, well, big whoop, right? Because if that's the federal funds rate, then you know that the spread over that is still going to be a couple hundred basis points higher at least,
Yeah.
maybe even more for these local banks, right? And so the the point here is that when they have to refinance their 4% loan into an 8% loan next year, or maybe even more, right?
Mhm.
Then that's when a lot of these people are going to be like, either the bank is going to tell them, okay, we won't do it, or they're going to say, okay, we'll do it, but only on if you do a this we can only do it up to this level, right?
Yeah, the
We can
cash in refi is going to be such a big.
yeah.
It's going to be
And
like, oh,
so
we need 70 grand. You got it?
that's just going to be bringing stuff to market, right?
I agree.
And so go, if you were sitting in town X somewhere, wherever you are, right? Go to your bank and just start talking to the bankers and just
Yeah.
get to know them and just say, hey, look, you know, I know this stuff is coming. You know, this stuff is coming. I'm in a good
Yeah.
position to buy these things, right? You
Mhm.
know, or I and my partners are have an appetite to buy them, right? And I want to get ahead of this and just start building that relationship because this opportunity is coming. It is inevitable, right?
Oh,
As you
that
know,
is the key word.
yeah,
This is mathematical. This is
yeah,
not an opinion.
yeah,
This is coming. You can
yeah,
argue the start and end date. That's fine,
right.
but it
You,
is coming.
yeah, and I was gonna say you could argue that how much of it is coming,
Yeah, the
right?
magnitude, perhaps.
The
Yeah.
magnitude may be more or less than we think, but it's come. But some of it is coming for sure. There are going to be these opportunities, and the people who get them are going to be the ones who have already pre-built the relationships. And with the brokers, right? You might also want to go. Some of these banks also will want to do this through brokers,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So find out who the favorite broker is, right?
Yeah.
Find out which brokership the bank uses, get to know them, right? Because they'll have the first access to the stuff. And believe me, those brokers, you know, brokers
I
more
think.
than anything
Yeah.
want certainty of close, right?
I think
They
that
don't,
is a great point. Yeah.
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 They
I would go to brokers first, actually. Just playing the timeline out. Just thinking human nature, right?
yeah,
You're going to go in for your yearly audit. The bank's going to tell you no joy. They're going to give you a 6, 9 month window to sell it because they're not going to refi. You're going to probably spend 2 months trying to find another banker. It's not going to work.
yeah,
And then you're going to list it. You're going to list it with a broker
that's
long
true.
before it shows up as distressed debt on the bank. So
That
I
is
think
true. Yeah.
I think I would try to find the top. It wouldn't even be a very hard search. I would try to find the top 5 commercial brokers. And again, if you come on my channel and tell me the favorite agent, it ain't them, right? Typically in a market, Fresno's 1 million people. There's probably, I'm going to say 12 people now that transact more than 10 commercial properties in a
Mm.
single year. It's a handful of people. Go
But
meet them.
I'll, meet them, right? But also, I'm going to tell you that one of the things that's consistently surprised me since I started getting involved in the hotel business, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing larger multifamily deals, I mean, they were basically always listed by commercial brokers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The smaller deals, though, very oftentimes you're dealing with somebody who they own 5 houses and one 5 unit, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and
Yeah.
and what broker do they go to? Well, they're not
Yeah.
going to Cushman and Wakefield or Marcus and Millichap or
You're
any of
right.
those places,
You're right.
CBRE, because they don't know those guys, and B, they won't take that listing because it's too
Nope.
small. They're
Exactly.
just going to go to the guy that they know, right? And
Totally
so
agree.
the guy who does no commercial deals at all,
And
right?
gets one every 3 years. Yeah.
Doesn't know exactly what to do with it, right? So if you and he's going to charge the regular like 6% commission that they charge on a single family house, which is not marketed for multifamily for commercial deals, but
Mm,
that's what they're going to charge. I mean, I've been surprised to find that too. Like the sellers are like,
wow.
they don't
Yeah.
know that they're getting ripped off
Take
by
it.
paying
Yeah.
6%. But anyway, the so if you're a seller of a small commercial property, 6%, you should not be paying 6%. I'm just
What
going to
should
tell you
they
now.
pay? So,
Three,
wow,
3%. Yeah.
total.
Yeah. That's,
Wow,
that's,
that's an
that's
extra
standard.
3 points in your pocket. Okay.
Yeah. Because these are bigger deals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I didn't know. I thought it
Oh
was
yeah.
4, but 3. Okay.
No, no, no. And,
Very
and
good.
actually in super tight markets, the brokers will start even getting, like less, right? So,
Wow. All
yeah.
right.
So,
It-
and you can always knock down. I mean, and I don't advocate this because you need a good relationship with your broker, but brokers, you can knock down your broker's commission too to get a deal done if it's a sticking
mm,
point. Um,
yeah.
because they're big commissions, there's room, a little more room for them to cut.
Right.
But anyway, but the point is, a great place to find stuff too is going to be Crexi, LoopNet, whatever. And because these smaller brokers will not know what to do with these deals other than to just throw them on Crexi and LoopNet. So I think you'll
That's
see
a
a
good
lot of them
point.
there.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. And so go just start talking to I mean, frankly, listen, go start talking to brokers in your market. You don't need to go everywhere. Like just
No.
go, pick 5 or 10 brokers in your neighborhood or whatever it is, and just go talk to them and say, hey, do you ever get any commercial deals? If you do ever get commercial deals, what do you do? Do you have a buyer's list for those or not? If you don't, great, put me on your list because I know this is coming, right? I'll be the guy who will buy these from you. And just work that relationship ahead of time. And frankly, the brokers are slow right now. They've got nothing but time on their hands. So, you know,
Yeah.
getting coffee with a broker is an easy thing to do these days. They're
Yeah,
happy to see you.
folks. Again, bring your buy box. Again, this is coming. It's not here today. I think the stress doesn't really even start until around June or July, because again, I am an owner of some of these loans. Thankfully, all my LTVs are sub 50%, so we're easy extensions. But it's coming. It'll be someone like me and Olivia. We will go to our bank, who we've never missed a payment with. We're, at 68% of old value, which is now 112% of new value. The bank's going to tell us, nope, we can't refi you. What we're going to do is we're going to bag, borrow, and steal. Not going to work. Then we're going to go to other banks. They're going to tell us the same thing. And then we're going to go, honey, do we sell it because we don't have the 70 grand to get the loan down? Or do we give it back to, I mean, it's going to be some stressful situations, but it doesn't start until at least July or August, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And there's there's going to be some short sales, I'm sure, right? Because
Oh, for sure.
the banks are
They
not
don't
going to
want
want to.
them.
Yeah, they don't
Oh,
want them. They
they
would
don't want
rather.
Class C 8-unit buildings. Are you kidding me? That's like the worst thing they want.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, they don't want any of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
They would
uh,
rather
e-
have a single family home than an 8-unit C class building, is my guess, but I don't know, maybe not.
who knows?
Easier
I
to
mean,
sell is all. Easier to sell.
yeah, but they don't want anything because they don't want to have to
No, they
run
don't.
it and sell it and all that sort of stuff. They just so they'll be much happier to do a short sale than than
Oh, for
the
sure. Oh
yeah.
yeah. It's a
And
better
listen,
outcome.
if you're in the unfortunate situation where you're looking at where you own one of these properties and you refinance it at what seemed like a great time, and
Yeah.
it at the time it always seems like, well, this will continue forever, and like nobody really anticipated this. If you're in that unfortunate position, I think you really need to go to your bank and make the case to them that, like, hey, it is much more in your interest to let us do a short sale on
Yeah.
this than for me to hand the keys to you, right?
Yeah.
They and sort of show them, do your analysis, show them what the property is really worth and
Mhm.
how essentially they can save themselves a whole bunch of legal
Headaches.
fees and
Yeah.
headaches and everything else. And they're going to have to pay a brokerage commission to sell it if they
Yeah.
take it on,
You
right?
know,
So
the
there,
other reality? Here's another reality. Again, I've been here before. I bought apartment buildings in the last crisis. Once you're that person 6 months out, June or July, and you realize that you don't have equity and you've listed it, right? It's still yours. You're not in financial stress, blah, 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 but you got to sell it. What's the next thing you decide to do? Is you delay or refuse to do maintenance.
yeah, totally.
So again, tell the bank, hey, this is the best condition this building's going to be in because I'm not doing anything optional, right? I'm
Yeah.
already screwed, so I'm not throwing good money after bad. So tell the bank, this is as good as it gets, buddy. Let's sell this thing.
And the other thing too that I think people ought to understand is that it really works in your favor to go get ahead of these issues with your bank,
Correct. Be the
right?
first.
Yeah,
Don't be
be
the
the
10th.
first. Yeah, exactly. Be the first, but also be the proactive person. Like go to, because it's much more likely that you're going to get the bank to do what it is that you need them to do if you go in proactively ahead of time and you say, "Hey, look, I recognize what's going on in the world. This is the situation. You know, I honestly I'm gonna list this property and obviously want to try to make enough money to get some of my
To
equity
pay you
back
off. Yep,
to pay
yep,
you
yep.
off. But the reality is we may not make that much money. And I just want to get ahead of this with you rather than coming in later when everybody's back is against the wall. And maybe your
Yep.
legal department is all backed up and doesn't even have time to like rewrite these notes or whatever it is. So get in there ahead of time and be proactive, be forthcoming, be honest, be transparent, right? And that is going to actually help you quite a bit. Now, nobody wants to be in this situation, but you've got to kind of look at it objectively and realistically. And if this is the situation you're in, then you want to get out as best you can. And you don't want a foreclosure on your record either, because that's going to make it impossible to get a loan the next time. So
Absolutely.
it's much better for you to get your equity wiped out, do a short sale, but have it be a sale, not a
Hmm.
foreclosure.
Correct.
And that keeps your record clean. And it means that you can go back to the bank later or to another bank later or
Probably,
whatever. And,
probably
and
another bank.
probably another bank, but you're not going to have this foreclosure on your record. Right. And that really
Yeah.
is something you want to avoid.
Yeah. Jonathan, this is fun. It really feels like you and I have been talking about this for a year and a half. It's right on the cusp, right on the horizon. The defaults are coming. There are things the small person can do, uh, to get after it. The one thing I'll close with is it does feel a little bit like the big stuff. There's a little bit of hopium going on. I'm
Oh
starting to
yeah.
see some folks think about, oh my God, the rates are going to crash. We're going back to zero. The Fed's going to save me. They're not going to save you. Just stop it. You're in trouble.
Yeah. And I think also a lot of, you know, even with the chatter about rates going down is all yay, rates are going down, and very
They're going to
little
go
of,
down to
yeah,
like,
exactly, very little of like, oh, 75 basis points, does that really, like, does that actually
does
help?
that actually save me? No,
Yeah,
doesn't save.
I'm finally starting to see a little bit of like the commentary change recently to
Mm,
like, all right, what is this actually going to mean? And I think, and now I'm seeing people write about what you and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago, which is, you know, it's going to help at the margins. There are some people, there's like a zone of a
yeah, there's
small number.
a, yeah,
Yeah, there's a small number of people who kind of like, given the position of their property, that a 75 basis, you know, point rate cut will kick them back into compliance, right? Or
mhm,
get them back up to where they can refinance with no
mhm,
cash in or a small cash in or whatever, right? But
yeah,
for people who bought at extremely low rates and now are refinancing at rates that are several points higher with the moving cap rates and everything else, it's still not going to help a lot of those people. So
no,
this is not like the get out of jail free card for everybody that a lot of people think it
yeah,
is. And
yeah,
then listen, I mean, and that's not even including in a lot of markets the hit that's being taken from the massive supply that's coming online. I mean, I was
yes,
just reading before we got on the call, 674,000 apartments coming online in 2024, and they
yeah,
are highly concentrated, right?
exactly.
They're highly concentrated in certain markets. This is just what happens with real estate every time. Like everybody
Builders
rushes to
build,
this,
man. Yeah,
but
exactly.
not only do they build, but they all build in the same place
Same spot. Exactly.
because
Yeah.
everybody's doing the same analysis and the bankers are doing the same analysis and they're all saying, oh, this is the place that's okay to build. And of course, what happens? Everybody does the same thing, gets overbuilt. So
Mm.
um, the especially in those markets, I think it's going to be really tough. And if you've got cash, or you're well capitalized, right, or you have a solid balance sheet, and you can go in and buy some of these distressed properties, but put a low level of debt on them now, right?
Yeah,
Go in
exactly.
at 50%, right? Or 60
Oh,
at the
totally.
most,
Yeah,
right?
max
Yeah.
60.
Go in at a low level of leverage to make this like a no-brainer for the bank,
Yep.
right? The time will come
Yeah.
in a couple of years where you'll be able
Yeah.
to refinance at a better rate, or your NOI is going to grow to the point where you can do, even at a
Yeah.
higher rate, you can do cash out refi, or you can go in and do a higher level of leverage and get some of that equity out. I mean, just think long term about these things, right?
Yeah.
And I
This
think,
is this is just a game of dominoes or Tetris or whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
That's why I love the, hey, let's take a 300K house, which you got for 100, take all that equity, move it into a building at 60% or better LTV. It's a no-brainer yes answer. Everybody wins. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Jonathan, what is the Facebook group that people should follow so we can keep on top of all this?
yeah, well, please come to Apartment Investors Club on Facebook. You can also go to apartmentinvestorsclub.com and get on my email list. And also, one other thing is I do have an active deal right now. So it's a brand new construct. So we are building a property
Mm,
in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is a very, very fast growing market.
yeah,
Um, so
very nice.
we've done a number of these already, and we have one active. So if you're accredited and you're interested in investing in that deal, we actually have a webinar later today on that, and just come and join my list, and you'll get all the details.
All righty, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. Have a
Thank
great
you.
week.
Yep. You
Later.
too. Bye bye.